Lori Vallow Daybell is headed back to court for her murder trial yet again, because apparently life sentences just aren't enough for this woman. But this time, it's not for her children, not for her fourth husband, not for her fifth husband's conveniently dead wife. This time, it's for the attempted murder of her niece's ex-husband, Brandon Boudreaux, a man who, in Lori's twisted, apocalyptic little playbook, wasn't supposed to survive. It happened on a quiet October morning. A Jeep, a single gunshot fired to erase him. But Brandon lived. And now, 5 years later, the trial is finally here. And if you thought Lori's courtroom behavior during the Charles Vallow trial was a full-blown dumpster fire, just wait, because something tells me that she's just getting warmed up. With opening statement set for June 2nd, Lori Vallow Daybell is once again center stage. The circus is rolling in Arizona. And the charge? Conspiracy to commit murder. And if you're thinking, wait, didn't she already get convicted of murder? Oh, she did, but Lori's apocalypse apparently comes with sequels. I'm Linda with It's a Crime, and today we're diving into everything you need to know before the trial begins. The shady alliances, suspicious timing, and a $12 million accusation, and all the chaotic breadcrumbs that may finally lead to another conviction. So now, let's get into it. Brandon Boudreaux wasn't just a name on a witness list. He was family. Married to Melanie Boudreaux, Lori's niece, with 4 kids, and in a life that looked like a Pinterest board come to life. But in 2019, that picture-perfect life cracked wide open. Melanie filed for divorce that June, and by fall, things had gone from awkward to apocalyptic. And the woman Brandon once trusted was suddenly knee-deep in Lori and Chad Daybell's doomsday delusions. A tight-knit, secret spiritual club where talk of portals, zombies, and dark spirits wasn't weird. It was gospel to them. Brandon started noticing the red flags. Cryptic behavior, spiritual mumbo-jumbo so far left field to what their faith actually was, LDS. And a custody battle that felt more like a prophecy than a legal process. What he didn't realize was that walking away made him a threat. Because in their warped little world, disagreement just isn't annoying, it's dangerous. And the people he should have been able to trust, they may have been the ones aiming for him all along. Investigators pieced together location pings, call logs, burner accounts, and surveillance footage to expose the plot, which raises a creepy question. Just how much of your digital footprint is traceable? It's terrifying, not just because of what it uncovers, but because of what it means for your digital privacy. That's where today's sponsor, Surfshark, comes in. Surfshark is a VPN, a virtual private network, and it's basically like turning on stealth mode online. It hides your IP address, encrypts everything you do, and protects you from anyone snooping around your data. Especially handy on public Wi-Fi, where hackers love to hang out. But Surfshark also lets you unlock content that might be blocked or censored in your country, so you can access news, shows, or sites from around the world without hitting a digital brick wall. And here's something I love. Surfshark lets you use unlimited devices, so you can run it on your laptop, phone, even your smart TV. And they also offer Surfshark Alert, which warns you instantly if your personal data shows up in a breach or leak. You can try it yourself at surfshark.com/it'sacrime or use code it'sacrime at checkout to get 4 extra months of Surfshark VPN. Plus, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee if it's not for you. So while some conspiracies leave behind digital footprints, you don't have to. October 2nd, 2019 was the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. It was a quiet Wednesday morning in Gilbert, Arizona. Brandon Boudreaux had just dropped off his kids, hit the gym, and was heading home, totally unaware that someone was waiting. As he approached his driveway, he spotted a Jeep Wrangler idling on the wrong side of the street. Dark tinted windows, no rear tire, Texas plates. Weird, but not run for your life weird. Until a gun emerged from the back window. Bang! The driver's side window of Brandon's Tesla shattered. A bullet narrowly missed his head. We're talking mere inches. Had he been leaning differently, this would be a very different video. Brandon floored it and called police. And what came next blew the case wide open. Surveillance footage captured the Jeep. It was traced back to Charles Vallow, Lori's fourth husband. And guess who was behind the wheel that day? Alex Cox, Lori's personal hitman, brother, and the man who always seemed to show up when people that Lori didn't like needed removing. And the same guy who'd shot Charles Vallow just months earlier. And this wasn't just attempted murder, it was a message, and it failed. So bizarre fact number 1, the only one charged was Lori. You'd think a coordinated shooting, complete with burner phones, a getaway Jeep, surveillance footage, and a $1 million motive would land more than one indictment. But nope. Only Lori Vallow Daybell was charged, not Melanie, Lori's niece and Brandon's wife, who filed for divorce right before everything hit the fan, but then paused the divorce right before the attempt, since she'd be paid out if it wasn't completed. She knew Brandon's exact new rental address, had a $1 million life insurance policy on him, and closed on their previous house, and would solely pocket the profit had he been dead. And she had Air Force training that included firearms and field ops, which might explain why this whole thing felt tactical. And not Chad Daybell, who was in constant burner phone contact with Alex Cox the morning of the shooting. He's the one who ran the spiritual scorecard, the rubric that labeled people as light and dark. And guess what? Brandon, he scored dark, very dark. And later, so did 2 of his children. And he even helped with the rear tire and back seat of the Jeep at a storage unit. And not Alex Cox, the man who just so happened to shoot Charles Vallow 3 months earlier, Lori's protector, who also tinted the Jeep's windows and also helped with the tire and the back seat of that Jeep, and who police believe was behind the wheel and the trigger that day in Gilbert. So yeah, a coordinated attack, digital breadcrumbs, spiritual death lists, I call hit lists, and yet the conspiracy just vanished into thin air. The official reason? Not enough to charge Chad. Crickets about Melanie, even though she got arrested for trespassing that same month. But while some things may have been missed, the digital trail didn't. And it led right back to Lori, who's about to face her fate in court. Fact number 2, Brandon was the only one who survived of all the people tied to Lori's little end of days fantasy. Not Charles Vallow, shot dead by Alex Cox just months before. Not Tammy Daybell, who was found conveniently dead in her sleep weeks before Chad married Lori and soon after the attempt on Brandon. In fact, Tammy had an attempt that failed and then was murdered a week later. But not another one on Brandon. And not JJ, not Tylee, not even Alex Cox, who died after the spree ended. But Brandon, he lived. He was supposed to be erased just like the others. Labeled dark, insured for $1 million, and literally shot at in broad daylight. But fate had other plans. Now he's the only one left who can testify from experience. And he's going to face Lori in court. Not as a picture on a screen, not as past tense, but as a man who survived her and gets to look her dead in the eye while telling a jury exactly what it cost him. And let's see if her courtroom vibes change when it's someone she couldn't silence. Let me know in the comments, what do you think will happen? Fact number 3, the 12 million smear campaign that no one's talking about. When Brandon Boudreaux survived that attempt in 2019, the chaos didn't end with the bullet. The criminal investigation was just one part of the mess. Behind the scenes, Brandon was also waging a battle for his reputation, because someone wasn't just trying to kill him, they were trying to destroy him. On March 31st, 2020, Brandon filed a defamation lawsuit, and the defendants, not Lori, not even his ex-wife Melanie, but her lawyers Robert Jarvis and Garrett Smith, and their wives. Yes, their wives. Why? Because Arizona is a community property state, so this wasn't just legal warfare, it was asset lockdown. The accusation that they had publicly smeared Brandon through a press release, spreading claims that he was abusive, victimized women, addicted to extreme and dark visual paraphernalia, let's just say, that he was a part of a family involved in organized crime and even dangerous to his own children. all during a custody battle that was spiraling into madness. For someone like Brandon, a sales professional and devout member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, those statements were not only damaging, they were devastating. His business, his reputation, his standing to his community were torched. So he sued for defamation and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And the case quietly ended in a stunning settlement. $12 million. No public apology, no walk back, just a massive payout. Was it hush money, a silent admission of guilt, a way to dodge a jury trial? We may never know, especially since part of the money might be covered by malpractice insurance, and Brandon's team likely worked on contingency. But even if he received only part of the full $12 million, he still walked away with millions in compensation. And something that may even matter more, vindication. Because in a saga filled with lies, cults, conspiracies, and murder, this custody case turned courtroom bombshell might be one of the most overlooked scandals of them all. Number 4, Lori Daybell is representing herself again, and the judge is fed up. In most high-profile trials, you expect a polished defense team, seasoned attorneys, strategic motions, and carefully rehearsed arguments. Not Lori Daybell. Lori is choosing to represent herself, where she's facing these charges of conspiracy to commit murder of Brandon. For those who watched her Idaho trial and the recent trial in Arizona, this might feel like deja vu. Back in Idaho, she had a defense team, but in Lori's mind, if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself, even if you're on trial for murder. So Arizona, it's a whole different story. She has enough attitude for the entire state right in the courtroom, and if you haven't seen her behavior, here's a little It's a Crime info snack for you.
What about Melanie Gibb?
So Melanie Gibb and Delina Pacinos were both initially noticed in the state's 15.1. They have not noticed them again. I don't know if they can still call them if they're on their list, but they have relevant information to this case.
Have they been presented for an interview by the state?
They've both been interviewed multiple times by the state.
I mean, not by police officers. I mean, by either a prosecutor or someone in her office in preparation for trial.
In this case?
Yeah, in either case.
Not that I'm aware of.
Have they been subpoenaed?
The subpoenas are out.
What relevant information would they have?
They have relevant information to Brandon Boudreaux.
Okay.
And around that
what
time.
What is the nature of that relevant information?
It will come apparent if they have to get up and testify, Your Honor. I will only call them if I need
They're
them.
going to be precluded if you can't give me some minimal what relevant information they have. Just saying that they're relevant doesn't make them relevant. Okay?
Yes, and is this procedure that I have to say what each of my witnesses are relevant ahead of time and give my whole case in chief over to the state? It is?
Yeah.
That's how it works? That's the rules of law?
Stop interrupting me. Yes, that is the rule of law. That's just what the state does. They tell you what relevant information each witness has. So my answer is yes. So if you can't tell me what relevant information they have, they'll be precluded.
They both have had dealings with Brandon Boudreaux and Alex Cox. So
okay, so does someone, that was a server for them at a restaurant. It doesn't make them have relevant information as to this case. Anyone who came into contact with Mr. Boudreaux or Mr. Cox had some interaction with them at some point in their lifetime does not make them a relevant witness. So what is their relevance?
The state had them on their witness list and you're saying they're not relevant?
Apparently not. Are you calling them?
No, they're not on my...
Police interview however many people they interview because they're working on the case. They don't know who has relevant information, who doesn't have relevant information. All the people that they interview don't end up being relevant. So because they're listed in a police report somewhere, doesn't necessarily make them relevant.
Okay, their relevance lies in if I have to rebut something that the state puts on in their case in chief. They're just called in case they need them. They're subpoenaed in case I need them.
All right. It sounds like they don't have relevant information.
The prosecutor, Trina Kay, did a stellar job and had to endure the painful process, as did the judge and all of us. And her defense didn't even make sense. At times, she focused on what the witnesses offered her for creature comforts like water or juice. Anything but the focus on the truth. And in a recent hearing, she asked the judge to recuse himself, claiming that he was discriminating against her.
Your Honor?
Yes.
I would have to ask that you would recuse yourself from the obvious personal bias that you have against me and send us to master calendar for this scheduling of a trial.
And what personal bias is that?
A lot. Obviously, the personal bias that you're showing right now and that you've shown on the FTR several times during the trial.
Okay, well, I don't have any personal bias, all right? I've over-accommodated you on when you have to disclose things. In fact, your expert should be summarily precluded today, and I haven't done that, all right? So
You denied every single one of my motions since for a year and a half that I've been here. Every single one of my motions has been denied. And have any of those motions not had merit? You've denied every single motion.
I think I was here this morning about 15 minutes ago when I granted your motion to meet with your attorneys over the lunch hour. I have granted other motions of yours, okay?
That's the first motion that you've ever granted
Well,
in my behalf.
file motions that have a legal basis, and I might grant them.
So you're saying none of my motions have had merit?
Not many, no.
And none of the motions that my first team, you denied every one of my first team's motions, you denied every one of my second team's motions, and now you denied every one of my motions until today.
I haven't denied every one of your motions.
Every single one of their motions was denied, every single one of the second team's motions were denied, and all mine. So you didn't come into this with any bias against me in the first place?
Again, file a motion that has legal merit, okay?
And none of my attorneys ever filed a motion with any legal merit?
They filed a motion on your behalf, the first team, to preclude media coverage, and I issued my ruling according to the law, all right? They filed a motion to have you dressed out, not in jail clothes during hearings like this, okay? That was not based in law. I denied that motion. So I've ruled on the motions as required by law.
Without any kind of a conclusion of law in them, just denied. Does that not show a bias and a prejudice against one single person?
All right, are you done?
Are you not going to recuse yourself?
No, I'm denying your motion.
She argued with him from the defense table like he was just another pawn in her spiritual battle. And his response, "Are you done?" The judge visibly fed up, and Lori doubling down on delusion. And this isn't courtroom drama, it's a spectacle. And Lori, she's not just defending herself, she's performing. But with the judge clearly running out of patience and stakes as high as attempted murder, this show might not end the way she thinks it will with any luck. Number 5, the Jeep, the binder, and the smoking gun. It wasn't just the wild beliefs or the string of bodies piling up in the Daybell case that raised eyebrows. It was the evidence. The weird, bold, why would you even do that type? Let's start with Melanie Boudreaux, Lori Vallow's niece and next-door neighbor at the time. She moved mere weeks after the shooting, but only after lying that she'd be moving to Boise, not next to Aunt Lori and in the same complex as Uncle Alex. During a walkthrough of her apartment, police noticed something strange. Okay, many things were strange, but one detail stood out like a clown at a funeral. A tidy 3-ring binder packed with her ex-husband Brandon Boudreaux's credit cards and driver's license. It's a weird flex considering they were very much divorced and he definitely wasn't living there. But wait, there's more. When Brandon was nearly gunned down in front of his own house, he didn't just panic, he got proactive. As an insurance agent, he clocked the suspect's vehicle right away, a dark Jeep with Texas plates and no spare tire on the back, and not just any Jeep, it looked exactly like the one Charles Vallow had purchased for Tylee Ryan. You know, Lori's daughter, who was later murdered. Brandon handed over the Jeep's VIN number to police, supplied emails from Charles, and even hired his own private investigator. Because when the universe hands you cult conspiracies and attempted murder, you go full Sherlock. And as detectives traced the Jeep's movements, they discovered it had traveled to and from Rexburg, Lori's little apocalypse HQ. And police in Idaho searched the Jeep and discovered DNA, gunshot residue, and other physical evidence linking it to the crime. And all roads kept leading back to the inner circle. And this wasn't just suspicion, it was receipts. Literal forensic ones. Number 6, Lori rented a storage unit. As if things weren't suspicious enough with a drive-by shooting, burner phones, and a Jeep with more miles than Lori's list of victims, let's talk about the storage unit because nothing screams not guilty like being caught on camera twice, unloading a tire and the backseat of a Jeep into a rental unit while under investigation, or conspiring to murder her ex-nephew-in-law. According to surveillance footage, Alex Cox and Chad Daybell were seen with Lori moving items in and out of that storage unit on multiple occasions. First, Chad brings in a tire and the back seat not long after Brandon Boudreaux was nearly shot in front of his own house. Then Alex returns to take out the wheel and the seat, because apparently when you're cleaning up a crime, you just casually uninstall your car's furniture and stash it in a rental unit like it's a seasonal wreath, all the while being caught on camera. And the common denominator, Lori Vallow. Although she signed the storage unit lease as Lori Ryan, the last name of her third husband. And by the way, he's dead too. So now we've got the Jeep, a tire, the Jeep's back seat, and a storage unit acting like a murder closet. And it's like they were all trying to play CSI Idaho in real time, except with the grace of someone who's seen one episode of Law and Order and decided, yeah, I got this. Speaking of clueless, when Melanie was asked by the authorities to come in the day after the shooting for an interview, she brought her 2-year-old toddler in without asking what it was regarding. She said she was related to Alex and Lori, but insisted they were not close. She wouldn't give the police their phone numbers because she claimed she was afraid that they were being tracked. As for her whereabouts during the attack on Brandon, she's foggy on the details. Not sure what I did yesterday, and said sometimes she goes to the park, maybe the gym or the mall. And she did remember one thing. Brandon had texted that he'd had a bad day. Her reply, hope tomorrow is better. Is that innocent or was that something darker? And when the detectives told her that someone tried to murder him, there was zero reaction. No fear, no emotion, just silence. And the defense might try to argue that this is all just coincidence. But stacking this on top of the Google location data, the burner phones, and Lori filing motions like she's trying to win a legal bingo card, it's becoming pretty clear the conspiracy didn't just cross state lines, it left a breadcrumb trail of tires, texts, and questionable decisions from Rexburg to Gilbert. Number 7, Google knows what you did last fall. If Lori ever tries to play dumb about Brandon's attempted murder, her Google history is about to testify louder than any witness. Before Brandon was nearly gunned down in his Tesla, Lori was deep into YouTube, not for cat videos or yoga tutorials, but for a step-by-step guide on how to remove the back seat of a Jeep. Totally normal behavior for someone who just happened to have a daughter with a Jeep, a brother with a death to demons complex, and an ex-nephew-in-law who just dodged a literal bullet from a Jeep driving past his house. But wait, it gets better. Lori wasn't just watching car mod videos like some soccer mom turned DIY mechanic. That same night on the shooting, she was firing off a series of eerily specific Google searches. Gilbert AZ News, man shot in Gilbert AZ, man shot in Gilbert AZ 10/2/2019, ABC News Brandon Boudreaux. So while Brandon was still rattled and helping police piece together what happened, Lori was on her phone trying to see just how public that attempted murder had gotten and probably whether she needed to start scrubbing. Alex Cox, too, searched for Brandon's address a few times. And these searches weren't random curiosity. They were time-stamped digital fingerprints, all pointing towards someone who wasn't shocked by the crime, but intimately aware of it. Number 8, Lori's legal gymnastics. Now let's talk about what Lori's been up to behind the scenes, because while most of us would be prepping for a trial we're accused of conspiring to kill our ex-nephew-in-law, Lori's been busy filing enough motions to make a judge's gavel curl on itself. First up, a motion to dismiss over non-preservation of evidence. Lori claimed that the Gilbert Police Department dropped the ball by failing to preserve the window and door of the Tesla Brandon Boudreaux was driving when someone tried to blow his head off. And photos exist, but Lori insists that is not good enough. She wants the defense to be able to test the vehicle, which was never impounded. The state responded basically saying, sure, maybe the car wasn't preserved, but the police weren't acting in bad faith, and that's not getting you off the hook for conspiring to commit murder, Lori. Prosecutor Trina Kay added that the defense is free to argue negligence, but no amount of fingerprint dusting is going to clear Lori of helping her brother pull a drive-by. But Lori wasn't done. She also filed a motion to suppress all evidence tied to the Jeep Wrangler used in the shooting, claiming that it was seized illegally. And according to her, Detective Ray Hermosillo from Rexburg PD saw the Jeep on November 4th, 2019 and called up Arizona PD with a casual, hey, got your Jeep, before a warrant was in hand. The problem, a warrant had already been issued 3 days earlier, and Hermosillo didn't tow it off the street. It was in Rexburg PD custody for a week and a half before Arizona officers came to pick it up. So yeah, another motion down. Then there's the argument against phone data and text, claiming that since her co-conspirator Alex Cox is dead, the state can't prove his intent. She also attacked the use of geofencing and said anyone could have bought a burner phone and attached an email address to it, including the now infamous homerjmaximus@gmail.com that belonged to Alex. And the state again said, nice try. All the phone, text, and iCloud data was obtained via search warrants, and there's no question it was Alex Cox's digital footprint lighting up the maps like a neon confession. Meanwhile, Lori also requested special accommodations during trial, asking for access to her defense team throughout the day, not just during lunch. Apparently, she wasn't given that access during her last trial because of jail staff scheduling. Whether or not the court will cater to her like it's a hotel concierge, to be determined. Number 9, the witnesses and Brandon testifying. The prosecution, meanwhile, is ready to go. They've listed 22 witnesses, including officers from Gilbert PD, Chandler PD, Phoenix PD, Mesa PD, the FBI, and of course, Detective Ray Hermosillo back in the saddle. And many of you are loving that. Brandon Boudreaux himself is set to testify, staring down the woman who allegedly tried to have him killed while she acts as her own attorney. This will be the courtroom equivalent of a slow motion car crash. And I wonder what movie Lori will conjure up to reenact and present. Will she also talk about her famous cheesy chicken chili enchiladas that she presented to her brother Adam Cox, who was on the witness list? The one that her living son Colby said they were just mid, nothing special. And what will she choose to say to Brandon? I'm betting there will be some digs in there for sure, somewhere to him. He wrecked her plan and all of the bunch's plan. Number 10, how long is the trial? Opening statements are scheduled for June 2nd, with the state estimating 4 to 5 days to present their case. They're planning to go dark on June 6th and maybe the 5th because 3 witnesses aren't available. And as for sentencing, if convicted, Lori faces life with the possibility of parole after 25 years. That's on top of her 3 consecutive life sentences for her Idaho convictions. Oh, and she hasn't even been sentenced yet in the murder conspiracy of husband number 4, Charles Vallow. So stay tuned for that. Also, Lori filed yet another motion to dismiss the case entirely, claiming that Judge Boreski abused his discretion and violated her right to a speedy trial. The judge denied it, and frankly, if anyone's been dragging this out, it's the woman who replaced her entire legal team midstream. And bonus, the hair tie, the portal potty, and the wedding bells of doom. Let's start with Lori, our dark queen of delusion, walked into court still rocking that infamous black elastic hair tie as a promise ring to her 5th husband, Chad Daybell, or wedding ring, shall I say. Currently jailbound and allegedly using his cell like a spiritual phone booth to portal chat with Lori, or as I call it, the portal potty. What you might not know too is Lori will be sporting a Zap belt. One wrong move and she gets it. I'm kind of hoping to see that. But the courtroom isn't just about Lori's fashion choices or astral Zoom calls. It's about the horror that Brandon Boudreaux has to relive. Because not only did Lori allegedly try to have Brandon murdered by her brother Alex Cox, but Brandon is also the person who had to identify little JJ Vallow's remains, who was wrapped and bound in duct tape and bags. And he faced that, but he couldn't even identify JJ's sister Tylee's remains because she was brutally dismembered and burned, and they had to rely on DNA and teeth fragments. Now imagine standing across that courtroom from Lori, staring into the dead eyes of a woman who smiled through the deaths of children, laughed at her 4th husband's demise, smirked at her 5th husband's previous wife, and your own attempted murder. And yet Melanie Boudreaux, the niece and loyal Apocalypse fangirl, hasn't been charged with anything. Why is that? What makes her so squeaky clean while the bodies pile up around her? Also, Melanie married Ian Pulowski 2 weeks after finalizing her divorce from Brandon on November 30th. Ian reportedly met her on an LDS dating app just 2 weeks before her marriage. which means she remarried within 60 days of her ex-husband getting shot at by a masked gunman in a Jeep registered to Charles Vallow, but sure, let's all pretend that she's just a victim. So to sum it up, we've got a potential obsessed prophet, a black hair tie masquerading as a wedding ring, a courtroom full of trauma survivors, and a niece who moved on faster than Lori did from her last husband. And if this trial doesn't make your jaw drop, you might already be in one of Chad's spiritual dimensions. This trial isn't just about Lori, it's about how far people will go when they think that they're above the law, and just how long it takes the justice system to catch up. It's about the survivors, about kids who never got to grow up, about lies wrapped in scripture and marriages faster than Amazon Prime shipping. And don't forget, I'll be live streaming the Arizona trial, where we'll not only watch Lori finally face consequences, but we'll do it together as a community with snark and truth. So bring your popcorn and bring your portal jokes. Huge thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring today's video, for keeping my browser safer than Lori's alibi. Protect your data, stay private, and surf the web like a pro with Surfshark. If you haven't already, you get 4 extra months by heading to surfshark.com/itsAcrime, or just click the link in the description. And if you need to catch up, I just uploaded a full timeline video on the attempted murder of Brandon, and there's a whole playlist covering his case. Check the description, hit up that playlist, and buckle up, this ride is not over yet.